Howdy, folks. Thank you for tuning in via podcast through the means of the internet. I am with my good friend, Bassmaster Elite Series angler, Destin DeMarion. Destin, how you doing today?
Hey, not bad, Dom. How are you?
Doing really well on this early spring day. I'm sitting in my car next to about 15 fishing rods, wishing I could get someone to bite from shore, but it's just not happening right now. The water's in the upper 40s, and I need life to get back to normal, if you know what I mean. This whole coronavirus epidemic is just so bizarre.
Yeah, it's definitely been a weird situation. Obviously, you're talking about it in that situation, but, for the tournament world, for just families in general, I mean, it's just work. It's just changed so many things.
Yeah, everything's so different. Go back 3 months ago, we were almost at war with Iran, and that just sounds so tame and docile compared to, how Americans and how, the global economy is going about its business right now. I just never thought I would see anything like this, but that's the world we live in.
No, it's definitely uncharted waters because, our country's never really come across anything like this. It seems like something you would imagine like medieval days with like the Black Plague.
Yeah, read it out of a book or something, or, have your grandparents tell you about how things used to be back in the 20s.
That's right.
And gas is just a little over $1 where I live right now. In some parts of Detroit, it is 99 cents. But how are fuel prices looking in Pennsylvania?
That's pretty good. So Pennsylvania is definitely one of the more expensive states. Like across the board, it's not as expensive, but our tax is like the highest in the country. It's under 2 in most of the places in Pennsylvania, like Western PA, but it's like barely under 2.
Oh goodness, I see. It's still cheap in the retrospect of things, but compared to a lot of other places, it's pretty surprising how low fuel prices are right now. But
for sure, you guys are lucky.
Yeah, enough about that. Let's get talking about bass fishing. For those of my listeners who don't know, Destin has competed in 45 Bassmaster tournaments, correct?
That is correct, yes. The majority of them have been as a co-angler. However, okay. I think 30 of them were as a co-angler.
Okay. And you have a combined total weight of 786 pounds, 7 ounces. That's a lot of bass when you think about it. Tagged along with career winnings topping over $45,000. That's a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, I hope we can get it up a little higher. Obviously a lot of it was as a co-angler, so it's not as much money, but now when you're on the Elite Series, each check is a significant amount more money than when you're even in the Open. So it can definitely jump up quickly.
Oh, big time. I saw that payout from the St. Johns River when I was looking over your stats the other day. It's definitely a larger payday for you.
Yeah, no question about that. It's pretty cool. And
you're sponsored by some of my favorite brands. You're sponsored by Berkley, Humminbird, Minn Kota, Abu Garcia, Owner Hooks, and Dura Edge products, to name a few. I'm really big into Berkley and Abu Garcia. I always have been. I'm a little biased, but I think their stuff rocks.
I would agree. I concur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like something I think that most of us growing up uses. I think a lot of us up north start out, trout fishing, fishing for just about anything. And, we get introduced to Berkley Trilene XL, big game. We're using power bait dough balls for trout and, that kind of stuff. And then it's just, now we've got the hard baits and a lot more soft baits. The max scent is incredible. It's just blown up into everything.
Oh, yeah, it has been unreal how far Berkley fishing, the leaders in fishing innovation, have taken their products over the past couple of years. I grew up, walleye fishing, Saginaw Bay, Detroit River, Saginaw River. We jigged a lot of gulp minnows when I was a kid, and when the flicker sheds and flicker minnows came out, you know, we would use those, and I would use the dough bait for catfish. But that Max Scent line of power bait came out, and I fell in love with it instantaneously. I love the flat nose minnow for drop shotting, and I love the General for wacky rigging because it gets to business. It has a very fast sinking rate compared to a lot of other cigar style worms like that.
I agree. It definitely is like more dense. It falls quicker, and there's something about the scent too. I mean, the fish just hold on to it a lot better.
Oh, they eat the snot out of it. Oh, goodness gracious. But for the most part with the Max Scent, those are the only two I've really thrown around. I do a lot of drop shotting, and that Max Scent minnow is a killer. Wacky rigging, I'll use the General, or I will also treat myself to the Gulp 5-inch sinking minnow.
Okay. I used to use those a lot more. I don't even know if they make them anymore, do they?
I'm not 100% sure. I bought a whole bunch a few years ago out of fears that they would stop. You know, it doesn't seem like a lot of people are using Gulp anymore, especially for bass fishing. But
especially now we've got Max Scent.
Yeah, and I remember being, you know, a kid on Twitter probably 7 or 8 years ago at Berkeley Fishing. You guys need to make your rendition of the Yum Dinger or the Yamamoto Senko because I know it's going to be scented and I know it's going to be a quality bait. And lo and behold, they came out with this General, and I use it quite a bit.
Yeah, the General's an awesome cigar shaped like sinking worm type bait for sure.
Now, what is the hook you use for wacky rigging those?
So I primarily use the Owner wacky hook. It's like a gold hook. It's kind of got like a bend, almost like a circle hook, but the point doesn't turn back in. But it makes it so you pin them in the mouth. So once you hook it in, you really can't get it out. So you're going to lose a lot less fish. So I like it for that reason. But I've also started using like an Owner, like a cover shot to do some of that. I'll just get rid of the line tie because that'll just catch weeds and stuff. But the straight shank worm hook, I feel like you lose less fish on overall, whether you're drop shotting or whether you're wacky rigging.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look into both of those. I saw that, you know, you were sponsored by Owner, and I've heard a lot about their wacky rigging hooks and their mosquito hooks and other products of theirs. I need to try them out sometime this year. In the past I've used the Gamakatsu Finesse Wide Gap or the Berkeley Fusion Finesse Wide Gap. Both work pretty well, but from everything I've been hearing about the Owner wacky hook, it's something I'm going to try out later this year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend it. There's a lot of other good hooks out there, obviously, like you're saying. Like, over the years, I've used all kinds of different hooks, but I'm big-time proponent of Owner. I mean, that's what I've used primarily for the last 5 years, I would say. And, I mean, it's hard to stray now. Like, I've just got so much confidence in them now that they're just great. I mean, they catch fish all over, and they usually... You're not going to have the issues with the hooks coming out, and that's the most important thing.
That's awesome. I can't wait to try them out. So I was also going through your... What was that?
Yeah, I hope you get to.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The water's still a little chilly, so I haven't been throwing the wacky rig around. I haven't been throwing much around lately. There was still ice on the lake a few weeks ago, and I was getting them on the jerk bait, but that was it.
Yeah, it seems like the jerkbait is really like the key when ice is out, just because it stays right in their strike zone. A lot of them are suspended and kind of, you know, in between being aggressive and not.
Yeah, you know, some days I was letting it sit, you know, up to 20 seconds between pauses, or 20 seconds.
That's a lot of patience.
Oh, it's a lot of patience. But on some days, you know, you just had to reel it in slowly. On other days, you just had to let it sit right above the weeds. And I was using the Berkeley Skinny Cutter 110, and they were coming through and they were getting every single hook. Just
clearly they wanted to bait. He just had to get the right cadence, and that was the key, I'm sure.
So I hear you're into power fishing.
Yeah, I mean, most people would think I'm a finesse fisherman, but I definitely prefer to power fish.
Now, what methods of power fishing are your favorite, or do you believe you're most successful with?
I would say throwing a frog is number one, be it my favorite and probably the most successful, because when I catch them on a frog, be in a tournament or what have you, I'm usually doing really good. Like if I can get on a frog bite, I'm going to end up doing really good, because the fish, I feel like when you're catching them on a frog, you're catching that above average quality of fish. So if you can get on that bite, it's a tournament winning or tournament high placing strategy.
Oh, yeah. I you know what? I've actually seen it before. Now that you say that, especially in tournament applications. But generally speaking, I'm not that good with the frog. But every fish I get to blow up on it is a nicer one. If you can get on, a couple using a method to throw it back in the slop like that, it's definitely it. I just recently last year I started bending my hooks up a little bit more. And I've
that's a good little trick.
And I'm not losing nearly as many fish.
Yeah, that is definitely a good little tweak you can do with your frog. Another thing, like you were saying, throwing it back in the slop. I mean, it's not always, I think that's something that most people focus on, and it's not always something that you need to do. Like a lot of times I do the best catching fish on a frog, whether in open water. I mean, I catch them over scattered grass, around riprap. I mean, I'm fishing around stuff that isn't generally the only thing that you think about when you're frogging. I mean, when you're thinking about frogging, like you're saying, you're thinking about slop and stuff, but you can literally throw it in so many different situations and do well with it. And that's why I like it so much. I've spent so much time throwing it in different situations that I've kind of learned and got comfortable and confident in throwing it almost everywhere.
Oh, see, that's awesome. That's really good. I know a lot of fishermen, especially topwater anglers, they don't like jumping out of that comfort zone of fishing outside of where they're expecting to get those big bites. Like me, I'm a really big buzzbait angler, and I'm not afraid to throw it out in open water along shallow flats. But most people, if they've got a buzzbait tied on, which you hardly see anymore, in my opinion, they'll just go bomb the shoreline. But if you go offshore a little bit, find a drop off, find some cabbage to fish outside of it, man, oh man, you can get some real chunky ones out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, buzzbait is another great way to catch big fish. Generally, when you get a bite on that, it's a good one too. So, I mean, that's another great power fishing technique and another great topwater technique.
Now, what line is it you're throwing with your frog operation?
So I'm always going to throw a braided line. I use Gamma line for all my stuff. So Gamma's got a braid called Torque. So generally like a 50-pound is what you're going to want to throw with the frog. The reason I wouldn't go to a 65, I guess I would in a really, really thick cover situation. I would go to a little heavier just so you have a little bit more power to get them out of that stuff. But 9 times out of 10, 50 is going to do it, and it's going to allow that frog to have more natural action when you're working it.
That's
the line's not
expecting, yeah. So the 50-pound Gamma Torque. Okay, I'm going to have to add that to the list of other lines I'm going to have to try out. Yeah, I've fished Okeechobee before, and I've only got to do it one time, and I'm always reading up on it because it's so mysterious to me, and seeing how people flip and pitch and frog fish with 65-pound braid. But on sparse cover lakes like the one I live on, 50 gets me through. I've got an Abu Garcia Vendetta. I've just got a Pro Max and a 7-to-1 spooled up on there with 50-pound trilene braid. It gets the job done for me. I'm not throwing it in the really thick stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great setup. And like Okeechobee in Florida, I feel like is almost a whole different world in and of itself, because the cover is so much thicker. Yeah, and it's so thick there. I mean, those reeds and everything, just like you have to throw a really heavy line. or else you're never going to be able to get fish out of there.
Now, how's that St. John's River down there? I've seen your YouTube channel. I've seen how you did earlier this year in the tournament. What would you say to someone who would be willing to travel cross country and fish St. John's as a destination?
So the St. John's, especially in the winter and the spring, I feel like is, incredible. But like any Florida fishery, take that with a grain of salt. So the weather conditions have to be like in a warming trend heading into a full moon for it to truly be like that primo kind of fishing that you know, if you're watching fishing shows and seeing people catching them in Florida and stuff like that, that's what you expect. But there's only certain situations where it's going to truly be that good. The St. John's has kind of went through like a transformation, and in the 4 years that I've been there, the first 2 years it had plenty of eelgrass along the river, in the Lake George and everywhere. And then the last 2 years, it's really been devoid of all eelgrass, which has completely changed the fishery. It's become more of a kind of offshore fishery as far as in the river, which it's a little bit more challenging than when they're just in the grass and you could just throw a topwater or throw a worm and catch them all over the place. It's really changed the dynamic of that fishery. If you go in the winter or the spring, Lake George is generally the place to be. That's where the biggest fish are. That's where most of the spawning goes down or used to go down on the big eelgrass flats. But that's generally where I would go in that time of year. It's not quite the same, but, fishing reeds, fishing laydowns, things like that, where the fish are going to set up and spawn or stage or, little drops and stuff. Like, that's kind of what you're keying on.
Wow. That's and how many years did this transformation take that you speak of?
So, pretty much the whole, probably, I don't know, 20, 30, however many years.
20 or 30 years or so, okay.
Full of eelgrass. And then maybe 2 or 3 years ago, one of those big hurricanes came through and just decimated it. And it just really hasn't come back.
I've never expected as an angler, generationally, to see such monumental differences in fisheries with my own eyes, especially up here on the Great Lakes and down in Florida, with the hurricane factor and the ecological changes that it bears along with it. So many years ago, we're talking 20, 30 years ago, some of the best smallmouth fisheries in Michigan, weren't the best smallmouth fisheries in Michigan. The water was a lot more dirty. There really weren't bait fish for these smallies or anything to be feeding off of until the gobies came around. And these smallmouth,
the zebra mussels clearing it up too.
Yeah, the zebra mussels cleared the water, and the bass started eating the gobies, and they got nice and fat. And Lake St. Clair, it totally shifted to becoming mostly a smallmouth lake. And to this day, I sent you a picture of that piebald largemouth bass the other day, and that's one of the few largemouth I've actually caught out of St. Clair in my couple of years of fishing out there.
Nice.
It's definitely an interesting perspective to see how environments change when it comes to, what I knew as a fishery versus what my children will know as the fishery compared to, when my grandfather was a kid and he'd be like, oh, we never had bass out here when I was younger. It's always so different,
Yeah, that's how it is kind of at Lake Erie here too. Back in the day, like well before I was around, the guys talked about how it was not really like a bass fishery. There really wasn't any big bass per se too, because it was just muddy, like it was stained water. You didn't have the gobies, you didn't have the zebra mussels. Then when those came in, it just went out of control. The smallmouth took over.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to get down there and fish it someday.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Obviously it's not that far from St. Clair too. You can fish the northwest side, which can be good too, but like our side, the east side is pretty dang good.
Oh yeah. Oh goodness gracious. I've walleye fished out of Port Clinton before, and we caught a giant smallmouth trolling, and I was just thinking how incredible it would be to be, so many miles offshore in the middle of nowhere on Lake Erie and bust a donkey out there, drop shot, and they're throwing a crankbait out there. It's definitely a dynamic fishery.
Oh yeah, there's no question. Those walleye guys do catch quite a bit of smallmouth too, like depending on the season. But it's pretty cool out in that area where you went, Port Clinton. I mean, those islands and stuff. We've had some tournaments out there at Sandusky, and it's pretty dang good smallmouth fishing there.
Yeah, how many? I saw you had several tournaments out of Sandusky under your belt. How many exactly would you say?
I think 4 or 5.
Okay.
I fished out of there.
Yeah, because I saw it come up.
3 were as a co-angler.
Okay.
2 or 3 were as a co-angler, and then 2 the same year as a professional, and that was the last time any tournament, like big tournament, went there.
Mhm.
Just because there was like 7 boats that sunk in the one tournament because it was so bad.
Oh goodness, it gets scary out there. Oh, especially in a low-profile bass Ferrari like a lot of you guys are driving around.
Oh yeah, it was not the best of conditions. It was like sustained 5-foot waves.
Oh gosh, that's terrifying. Oh goodness, that's terrifying.
Oh yeah, but when they're biting, it makes it a little bit better.
Now, when you're fishing Great Lakes bass, how do you like to fish for them?
In the West Basin, honestly, I like to crank a lot because I'm a power fisherman, like at heart. I want to chuck and wind.
Yep.
But I mean, I drop shot a lot. That's probably one of the main ones that you do, anywhere for smallmouth. Ned rig has really come on.
Yep.
In the spring and the fall, I like to throw a blade bait a lot. That's probably one of my favorite things to do.
See, I haven't gotten on the blade bait bite in the fall.
Yep.
But I do like to use really shiny lipless crankbaits. In a
which
fashion.
is pretty much same concept. Yeah, same concept. But I mean, right now, I'm sure you could catch them on blade baits around you.
Oh yeah, I bet you we could if we could get out right now. Our governor of Michigan just placed an executive order that outlawed operating a boat with the motor during the current coronavirus quarantine restrictions.
Yeah, I saw that video on Mark Zona's Instagram, how he wasn't very happy about that, and I could understand. I mean, that's a little excessive.
Yeah, it's definitely a reach, and I'm a level-headed guy. I don't think too much about motives, employees, and politics. You know how the fishing world can be, but it's definitely too far.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see the difference between going in a motorized boat and fishing out of a kayak or a canoe, I mean, you're still out there fishing, and you could be with 2 or 3 people in a canoe. I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah, and we can all crowd in, the Kroger or the Walmart, but you by yourself and maybe someone who lives in your house can't go on a boat that you paid to register, that you paid to put fuel in, and that you're paying for.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the big reason why people aren't happy.
Definitely seems asinine. But
well, hopefully them making some noise will help that kind of get taken care of soon.
Yeah, I believe she's going to be speaking in a few hours about that. How was it in your experience, coming on to the Bassmaster Elite Series? Congratulations, by the way. You've been working a very long time for it. It's something we all dream of. And
yes,
for the first time in my life, I don't have to tell you, bass fishing has changed so freaking much professionally. And, in the market, we're seeing a lot of new different baits. We're seeing a lot more different companies. We're seeing an international market explode right now. But professional tournament bass fishing has changed a lot over the past 2 years.
Oh, that's a fact. There's been a lot of changes with the organizations and stuff.
And, this enabled the opportunity to bring on a lot of younger tournament anglers, such as yourself and others, to fish the Bassmaster Elite Series. And for the first time in my life, I'm seeing individuals who are a part of my generation competing on the biggest stage in bass fishing. And I just think that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, I think, like you said, there's been a lot of change in the fishing industry, but I think change, it hurts, but it also is a good thing. I think a lot of us don't like change and we resist it, but ultimately it's going to bring about some good always. And I think the good is being able to bring new people into the sport. I think that's been the biggest thing, honestly. To create new opportunities.
Absolutely. Because you're only, you were born in 89, so
I'm 30.
So, okay, so you're 30 right now. I'm 25. You could be my older brother.
You're right.
When I was younger and I would watch, I'd get up on, Saturday morning, check ESPN2 before I had to do anything. And, I would watch Ike and Ellie in his old Toyota jersey and Skeet Reese and, all those big time dudes duke it out. But, it's 2020. I'm 25. You're competing. You're 30. Garrett Paquette, he doesn't live too far from me. And I think he's younger than me.
Yeah, I think he's right around the same age.
I think that's so cool.
Oh, it is. It's great. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest difference between this era and, the Kevin Van Dam, Mike Iaconelli, Skeet Reese era is, when those guys started, bass boats weren't $70,000, and the entry fees weren't $50,000. I think that's really the difference. And I think that's why it's a lot of guys. It's taking, unless you come from money, it's going to take you a lot longer to be able to get there, unless you have some really good fortune. Which I mean, I did too, just with sponsorships and stuff, and just having success as a co-angler. But it's a totally different ball game than it was 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness. 20 years ago, there really wasn't good fluorocarbon on the market yet.
Yeah. I mean, fluorocarbon, it was just kind of starting.
Everything's changed so much, and, it's rather...
Electronics have changed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's one thing to afford a boat, a trailer, an engine, and registration, but then you got to put electronics on it. It's not as cheap as, people make it out to be, and especially, with you chasing the dream of, you're chasing the dream with the classic in mind, obviously. You want to hold that trophy like everybody else. You want to hammer out the elites, and you want your name to be a household bass fishing name. We all do.
I mean, the main thing for me is trying to focus on what's ahead of me right now, and going to the classic, working the classic. My travel partner won the tournament, Hank Cherry, so that was super cool seeing that. But that just makes me want to get there more, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The guys that are working the expo, I mean, it's nice to help with the sponsor stuff, but you don't want to be there. You want to be fishing. That's what we do. We fish.
I was so happy for Hank Cherry when he won.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was such a long time coming. It was great to see him win.
Because I especially remember in 2013 when he lost a giant next to the boat.
Yep.
Right on that, I believe it was Championship Sunday 2013 when Cliff Case won it.
Yep. I mean, that would have been the game by a lot. He would have won for sure.
Yep. That was a big fish, but he definitely got his redemption day. So I have to ask, coming onto the Bassmaster Elite Series, you fished the St. John's in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And then take me from the moment you left Florida, go home or wherever, and walk me through the events of a professional bass fisherman in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic.
So right after St. John's, I mean, right before the corona stuff happened, we're having our first child. We had a daughter, Eva, a couple weeks after the St. John's.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
By the way, I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up out of privacy, but I have seen that, and congratulations.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. So I mean, I really wanted to be there. Obviously, we were supposed to have the Chickamauga tournament the week after, but that actually being postponed enabled me to go home and be there for the birth and be here for a lot of the time in between, which has been great. But I came home, we did that. I went down to Santee Cooper to pre-fish because we were supposed to fish there right about this time. Right now, we were supposed to have a tournament at Santee. And while I was down there, we got the news that, the coronavirus stuff was happening. The Chickamauga tournament that was supposed to be rescheduled in March, it was getting postponed. So that's when it kind of started. And I was like trying to make a decision. Should I stay down here? Because usually for my job for DuraEdge, I visit a lot of our customers, which are groundskeepers for like major league and minor league baseball fields. So
I did see that. That looks like an interesting gig.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like it's definitely niche and it's like its own thing, and I enjoy it. Like groundskeepers are a lot like fishermen, and a lot of them do fish. But like we all we pay such a close attention to the weather. We love being outdoors. Like they're very close to each other. Groundskeeping, landscaping, and fishing. Like they're all kind of tied in together. So I get along really well with all those guys, and I get to take those guys out fishing and do cookouts for them and the crews and stuff at the stadiums, which I really enjoy. I mean, that's a cool part of the job too. But I was thinking about going down and visiting more customers, and then I decided, well, I better get home just in case. Obviously, I want to see my daughter and my wife. So I came home, and sure enough, right after that happened, they shut down all the businesses in Pennsylvania. They shut down everything across the country. The president went and did his the union or whatever he did and said everything shut down. So it was good that I came home, but it was kind of a crazy situation, obviously. I mean, for all of us. Like the whole country has never experienced anything like this.
Yeah, I remember when it was happening. When it got real when the tournaments were getting postponed and rescheduled, and I'm thinking, what an interesting time to be alive. But how much more interesting it is to be a Bassmaster Elite Series rookie in the year 2020. You've got a rather cool job. I like to think. I think it would be pretty cool to be a tournament bass fishing angler.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely worse things you could be doing.
In one of the weirdest beginnings of a decade, I could imagine. It's definitely an interesting career at an interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, I don't think anybody, especially myself, would ever have been able to foresee anything like this happening. At this point, we'd already have been 4 tournaments deep, yet we've only had 1 tournament and had 3 postponed, and, basically the country shut down. I mean, it is definitely a crazy situation going on. And even St. John's, we had 2 days postponed because of weather, which was a crazy way to start the season, too. So it's definitely been a roller coaster.
Oh, goodness. Hopefully we can get off this ride sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I believe everybody's kind of doing their part, trying to stay quarantined as much as possible and limit exposure to each other. So I'm hoping in the next month that we're back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, same here. We're all hopefully when we come out of this, everybody practices a lot better hygiene.
Yeah, that's the good thing, and hopefully we all learn to appreciate things more so, because a lot of us had everything taken away, I mean, that we're used to doing.
Yeah, I would love to go back to work or school right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's you take it for granted a lot of times, and I think that's a good thing from this whole experience, that hopefully a lot of us don't take certain things for granted.
Yeah, the week before the big shutdown was my spring break, and I don't have classes on Mondays or Tuesdays, so I stayed home on the Monday and Tuesday. And when I was on my way back, it's probably a little over an hour drive to Detroit from my parents' house. I was hearing all these other schools were canceling, but for the rest of the year. And I didn't want to drive all the way. I didn't want to drive all the way down there, just to be sent back. So I kind of lollygagged. I missed my first class, and then I went to, the night class, because I didn't want to miss both of them. I didn't want to get caught with my pants down,
Right.
And sure enough, we get there. We were sitting in class for 15 minutes, and we all get an email saying, leave the university whenever possible. Oh, so we had to...
Yeah, it happened, quick. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, we had to get our clothes and, leave that night. It was definitely...
They weren't joking around.
Yeah, it wasn't expected at all. Now, before we wrap up this interview, is there anything bass-related you'd like to share with people listening?
There hasn't been too much going on. I guess the one thing I've been trying to do is start a new kind of series, like a Bass Fishing 101 on YouTube. So if you guys are looking to learn a little bit more, I've been posting a couple different tips every week on YouTube, so that's something to check out. I did a little trout fishing video I just posted today as well to switch it up, but I talk about how learning how to trout fish and reading current applies to bass fishing. So it's a good one for a bass fisherman or a trout fisherman really to watch.
And reading small rivers in current for steelhead helped my smallmouth fishing big time.
Very great example. Yep, that's awesome. I mean, just understanding current, like you're saying, is just, it helps you understand where the fish are going to position.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be sure to link your channel in the description below, along with how people can follow you and get a hold of you via social media in the comment section below. But with that being said, Destin, it has been a lovely time talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Dom. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah, we can do it again sometime in the future. And when this crossing the fingers here, if we have the Lake St. Clair event later this summer, I'll holler at me. I'll holler at you. We can meet up, go out to dinner or something.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah, I'm hoping we're fishing that one. Fingers crossed. That's far enough in advance that I'm hoping that everything's back to normal by August.
Oh, that's my favorite fishery, and everybody deserves to experience it once a year.
Oh, absolutely. It is a tremendous place to fish. Beautiful. I love the watercolor there too. It's just beautiful.
Isn't it crazy how clear it is?
Well, yeah, and it's got this bluish turquoisey kind of color. It's awesome too. It just looks like the Bahamas or something.
Oh, we've got some that I think are even prettier in northern Michigan.
I have been to a couple, and I agree. I mean, the watercolor is incredible at some of those places. I mean, you guys are blessed with so many really good fisheries and just beautiful scenery around there.
Oh, I love everything about the Mitten, and it's definitely home.
Yep. Well, there's a lot worse places because that's an awesome state for bass fishing, that's for sure, and just fishing in general.
Walleyes, trout, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You've got all the steelhead and salmon on the other side and all that stuff, too.
Alrighty, Destin, I'm going to let you get going on your day. Does that sound okay, brother?
I appreciate
Do you have any questions for me?
No, Dom. I think we're good, but I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
You're the man, Destin. Have a good one.
All right, man. See ya.
Bye-bye.